welcome everybody. Good evening to the planning board of December the 16th. The time is 7:03, calling this meeting to order. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor to start this planning board meeting of December the 16th at 7:03 p.m. Steph,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Jim,
Jim, you're muted.
Sorry, aye.
Brett,
Aye.
and I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. So this evening, are there any items not anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance? Hearing none, I will continue reading the rest of the agenda. So there'll be minutes for December the 2nd. There is no hearings for this evening. Current planning board business includes items for annual town meeting 2026, which includes A, stormwater management plan, continuing draft language discussion, B, housekeeping items, potential warrant language, and C, other items for consideration. The next item of business is other business, reports on meetings with other boards and entities, and then lastly, a town planner report. So that is our agenda. Do I hear a second for that agenda?
I'll second that.
Okay, Rob seconded. All those in favor? Jim?
Aye.
Brett?
Aye.
Steph?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. So that is our agenda. So let's move on to the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Presuming yes. Does anybody have any comments, changes, edits, amendments, deletions?
I've got a couple.
Okay.
Let's
If
see.
you wouldn't mind pulling that up.
Do you want me to share, or I can just describe it? Who's going to be doing the corrections?
I got it.
Okay.
Coming up now.
On page 3, we were talking about the stormwater management permit for 81 Prospect Street. There was a confusion in the meeting. Second paragraph saying the grass pavers used to increase the permeability of the driveway extension, 40% impervious. And the grass pavers have 40% open area at the surface and 60% is concrete. So it should probably say 60% impervious there.
No, I thought the amount that goes through that's grass is 60%. So
No, it's not. It's 40%.
What is that?
There were misstatements made initially, and then it was looked up and confirmed.
Yeah, you could say 40% pervious if you wanted to. And there was one little misspelling from maybe the incorrect text to speech, speech to text. Let's see, a little bit farther down. Where is it? Hang on a second, I'm trying to find.
I would say if it doesn't materially affect the minutes, if it's understandable, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time fixing little things.
Yeah, you can find it easy with search, I guess. I think they're talking about straw wattles.
Oh, I
it
saw
was
that.
spelled with D's, wattles instead.
Yeah. I saw that too, yeah. Okay.
That's all I had.
Any other comments, changes? Hearing none, I motion that we approve the minutes with the edits. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
And we have a second by Rob. All those in favor, Jim,
Aye.
Steph,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. Okay, thank you. So that brings us now to, where am I? Wrong. So we're now on current planning board business items for annual town meeting, stormwater management plan. I think there's a lot of discussion to happen for that. Steph, would you like to lead and pull that up?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could do the housekeeping items first because it's going to be faster. And maybe even the town planner report while Heidi's on here. And then we can get in the weeds on the stormwater management plan last because I think that's just going to take the time. Is that okay?
Sir, yes, absolutely. That's fine. Perfect. Yep. So housekeeping items, potential warrant language. Heidi, do you want to lead us through that?
Sure. So we're waiting to hear, Frank, if you were going to check with select board advisory on the warrant language, find out if we can use the abbreviated, or do they still want us to go with the full versions?
So I spoke with the chair of advisory and spoke with the chair of the select board. And they were both pretty much in line with what they had said, and that they felt that it was important to have the full context for anybody that was at annual town meeting and for those that reviewed the annual town meeting report or mailer before the town meeting, because a lot of people that's when they're looking at things and preparing themselves. So having that the full information about the changes, not necessarily putting the whole warrant or the whole bylaw in there, or the section of the bylaw, but just the changes. I think the stormwater is probably so invasive throughout the entire bylaw that we'll probably end up putting the entire bylaw with the changes in there. So they felt that last year that though there was a lot of space allocated to our bylaws and our warrants in the town meeting mailer, as well as the discussion in the detail. They felt that what we had done last year was really good and was really helpful to make sure that we get the appropriate bodies knowledgeable ahead of time, which would include the select board, advisory, and maybe for this case would also be DPW, Sean Colleen and Addie May, making sure that they are very informed and have had some input into the warrant as well. But they suggested that whatever was substantive changes that they be included, not necessarily the entire bylaw, but the parts of the bylaw that are going to be changed and how they're going to be changed. So there could be a discussion of how that, affects where we are versus where we're going, or what the intent of the warrant and the changes are.
Yeah, and that's how we've been doing it, is with just the changed sections. I mean, I agree with that. That was the stance I took at the last meeting. So I'm just pulling up.
Yeah, stormwater is going to be tough. The amount of
It's gonna be
track
long.
changes, yeah, the amount of changes and track change, it's going to be very difficult to read.
Well, it's only 7 pages as a
Yeah.
Word document, and it's really
Yeah.
only 6 because the first one's like a title page. So it's not it's not longer than what we had in there last year with all the.
No, and and that's fine. I'm fine with doing it. It's just I've heard complaints from the other side, so that's why I was trying to
If
balance.
if we're replacing an entire section, I don't know that we need to show what the old section was in the change.
You have to show the changes.
Yeah.
Well, if you're adding a new section, you just add it outright. But
Right.
if you're changing a section, you have to show what you took away and what you're adding.
Yeah, but if you're deleting the entire section and putting in a new section,
But for stormwater, I would say that's not what we're doing.
No, we have,
We're modifying it.
yeah, there's not a whole section chunks. There's pieces of each section and paragraph.
I guess I thought I saw some, but maybe I didn't. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So then we'll go back to the other format, and then moving on. I was
Well,
just going to.
So Heidi, I'm just going to pull it up because I have it open from
Mhm.
last time we discussed. Oops, I thought I shared it, but okay. Um, so this I think what we don't want to do is have it on file with the town clerk, but if we're illustrating the changes in the warrant language, is that enough as opposed to just saying, or do we need to show it like this?
You have to show it like that.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, that's what town council had said last year.
But we have to do this too.
You do the top, and then you're showing the sections of what
Yeah.
is being done if we're not
Okay.
doing it on file in the town clerk.
Yep. Okay.
So that's what I was proposing last time, which gave you all those changes. So that's what we'd have so far. And the only other option I was going to toss out was I had thought about, if we're trying to delete the low, moderate, affordable housing income apartments there. Another option would have been to change them to be under the special permit process. My only concern is even though then that wouldn't be giving us all these deleted changes on some things, it still doesn't really meet the requirement because it does not fit with the ZBA giving out a 5-year permit for them because they need to have a 30-year deed restriction. So I've gone back and forth trying to figure out if there's another way, but I think we have to delete the whole moderate income apartment, low and moderate income apartment. Yeah, unless I want to still leave it in there as a reference, but it just does not make sense if it's saying it's under a ZBA special permit and they usually only give them for 5 years, and to get it on the housing inventory, you need a long-term deed restriction.
I think the option that you're maybe suggesting, Heidi, can you guys see oh, Addie Mae's in the waiting room. Can you guys see you can only see the Word document, right? I have to stop and reshare.
Yeah.
Stop and reshare. Share this. Can you guys see this now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So the option you're talking about would be to leave this sentence and then say something like equivalent to 3A or whatever it was, which is the special permit. And just like delete, like replace all of this with just a statement that says equivalent to special permit. And that way we don't have to go and chase down all the references.
No, because in order to make it a low and moderate income, you have to meet all those different criteria and you have to show that it has to be counted on the SHI, et cetera. The reason that this came up with CBA is that it was brought up that this is a third category of ADU that we have, that someone could then have 3 ADUs on a property doing this one, a low moderate income. And that this one, because it doesn't specify in it that there's an owner occupancy requirement on either one, would be rentable, the primary and this, just like the by right ones. So we says in here that it requires a special permit, but it doesn't say that it follows the special permit procedures for ADUs, which our special permit requires ownership of one of the others. It was missing that component. And then the other weakness of it was that it says it requires a ZBA approval, yet in order to count on the local initiative process, they require a 30-year deed restriction.
So we would just say that the intention was that that
I don't-
anyone could do a lower moderate income ADU, but this, I'm just trying to think about how we would explain in town meeting deleting the whole category.
I think people were trying to look at a way to bring in affordable housing back when this was done, and that this was one of
And
the
now
ways
we
to
have-
say, and
yeah.
we already have different initiatives now. The problem was when they were doing this, I don't think anyone realized in order to get it to count, it required a 30-year deed restriction. So from an owner to put the 30-year deed restriction on their property and then trying to sell houses, it's like, this is not an attractive option. So if someone wants to make a low moderate income apartment, they can do that right now. As if they want, they don't need to go through this whole process.
Those are the key words right there, the last part of what you just said.
Yeah.
That we have other options to get
We
this.
have other I think now that
Are better than these restrictions that are applied in here.
right.
This one also just doesn't work because it doesn't
It
have
just doesn't. No.
You'd have to add the 30-year deed restriction, but then if you put the special permit on it, then that has to be renewed, and it's just weird, right?
It's just right. It became awkward, and I think this was done at a time before our whole inclusionary zoning aspect was done. And now with the ADUs, it's like we did not want a third category of ADUs.
So I'm a little confused here. An ADU generally would not be a subdivision, right? It would be a second unit on the same property, right?
Right.
So there would be, if you wanted one that's designated as low income, you'd have to have some kind of deed restriction that said this unit. Well, it's not clear to me how that can work. I mean, I guess.
I mean, any future rentals or point of sale for that unit would be tied to affordable housing requirements.
Right.
Yeah, I guess there's a restriction on how much the rent can go up as well. Okay.
Right.
Because it seems like, I mean, you can't sell it without subdividing the property, right?
Well, you wouldn't be able to subdivide it because it's not a primary residence.
Right.
So it's going to always be tied to your primary residence, but you're always going to have this income restricted unit along with your primary residence.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So Addie Mae has a comment. Addie Mae, do you want to?
Yeah, sorry guys, I didn't mean to. I know this is the conundrum that we keep facing, and I'm just trying to think of, I missed the first part. I don't know if the discussion is to just get rid of this, but having it in here, it's antiquated and it's not really practical, but not having something to reference, I feel like we'll just keep tripping up over it in the future as people say, oh, we're going to do an ADU and we're going to add to our affordable housing stock.
No.
And it's so hard to get across to people that no, the only way to add to affordable housing stock with an ADU would be for a homeowner to run the lottery, deed restricted 30 years, all of these processes, and it just to kind of explain why this is not an easy shoe-in, and why then sometimes the apartment building that not everybody wanted is potentially the best option for our town and community. So I just am trying to think of how to not lose that education, because it's going to keep coming up.
So I think that the intention here is potentially, or what the board has sort of done approved through straw polls in the past, is to completely delete use number 27. And
because we're referring to an apartment, and there's other means to achieve that through ADUs. And
well, apartment was the name of ADUs before we renamed it ADUs at the last town meeting. So it's the same. Yeah.
but a single unit essentially.
Yeah.
And
Addie Mae, I just wanted to understand if you were suggesting not deleting it. I wasn't sure.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I know we're trying to clean up our bylaws.
What if we were to delete this, but then in 3A, or I think it's, I don't remember what use number it is, but where we added special permit ADU? What if we added a clause into there to say it could be considered a low or moderate income apartment with a 30-year deed restriction? Or like to put it as a
Right.
subcategory under special permit, so it still is there as an option and it still
I think
shows
that
up in
makes
the
sense. I mean,
bylaws.
yes, having all of this verbiage here just adds clutter and it makes it, I agree, that makes it hard,
And it's
but having,
inconsistent. Yeah.
yeah, but I think having some mention of, yes, you could do an SHI ADU, but it would have to be 30-year deed restricted or somehow reference the, you know,
Would have to meet the requirements of the state for affordable units or something like that. That's more, we don't have to say 30-year deed restriction, but we can reference the state requirements
right, the state
somehow.
requirements for deed restricted and fair housing marketed units.
Heidi, how does that sit with you?
I think it's still overcomplicating a lot of the things. Because I think we'd almost have to keep number 3 in with that. The 3 describes the whole process of what's involved.
This one?
Yeah,
But you could just cite the state statute for what qualifies as a deed an SHI unit. So if you cite the state
yeah,
statute for the defining that unit, then you wouldn't have to have all of
yeah,
the wording.
Yeah.
And that, but it just to mention the state statute for a deed restricted fair housing marketed unit to be counted.
yeah. I mean, I think it should, to me, when I had read this initially, I thought it was a subcategory of our special permits. But because it doesn't have the owner occupancy requirement in it, the argument was posed to me and ZBA agreed that it was a third category. So if we put it as a subcategory in our special permit, it does then have to follow the owner occupancy requirements too.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really recall making it a non-owner. I think we did come up, this definition was devised, I think, before the I think this definition might have been approved before the 2018 when we allowed special permit. Like it might have come first because there was a lot of as an option to try and add affordable units, and then we got buy-in for, and maybe it was just assumed that the owner would occupy one unit, and that's why it didn't get spelled out initially.
Yeah, but because it's not in here, it was held to me that we can't create it that way. So that it right now it exists as a third category.
I mean, there was a potential application of this for non-owner occupied, which has not now been withdrawn as a use when the deed restriction thing came up. But the point is that it's very confusing and
Yeah.
so, but I mean, if we could come up with some language, Heidi, that says something like, and I just scratched something out here, under the special permit ADU, which
Yeah.
that is that online yet? Is that up in?
I don't
have those been
know. You know
incorporated?
what? That's gone to general code, so it's not in here yet.
Okay, so there's a 2A, which is but the 2A for the special permit, right, is permissive in all districts.
Yep.
And then maybe if this were it, maybe we would put a B. Wait. Yeah, this is the special permit one, right? The one that was originally there. Yeah.
Right.
So we could put a new item under the special permit one that says something like the special permit ADU may be designated as a low or moderate income unit subject to state requirements. And however we want to say that. And
Like make a
then
number 9.
a number 9 or probably a letter B, because this says provided and it's not a requirement, right? It's just
Okay. Yeah.
I don't remember if it looks exactly the same as this. If it looked the same as this, I would put it as a letter B, not as a
Yeah.
ninth requirement.
Okay.
But we could work in some sort of language that says it may be designated as a lower moderate income unit, but would be subject to state requirements for that designation.
Yeah, and follow the above requirements too. Because I don't
Oh,
want
yeah,
them to
yeah,
say,
yeah.
I'm concerned
Yep.
that if you go a B, they're going to say, well, no, owner's not in B, owner's only in A.
Other provisions of this
Right.
use. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. We'll work on that for January.
Can I ask also, I seem to recall there was an issue with apartment. Either we don't have a definition or it's not clear how an apartment.
It's not called an apartment anymore. This is the old bylaw. So
Yeah.
it was replaced with ADU, special permit ADU, and what's it called? Protected use ADU. So now we have two categories, and we wrote in as formerly apartment, but the term apartment has been replaced.
Yeah.
So that will be reflected here.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. This is not our current bylaw. This is not the approved bylaw. This is the pre-town meeting bylaw.
Yeah.
Heidi, do you know what the process is for updating these? Because at this point
We had to wait for the Attorney General's approval, which didn't come to November, and then you got to wait 90 days to make sure nothing's being appealed, and it gets sent to General Code, and they take several weeks before they upload it. So we're looking at February, March.
But at least before the next town meeting,
It should be before the next town meeting. Yeah.
which is at least helpful.
Yeah. Because it is frustrating when it's been approved, yet it's not here. All right, and then we have one other section where we do list in living accommodations in non-residential buildings, 243.3. I don't know if you can get to that section up there, Steph. Right there, yeah. And in there it mentions as may be permitted for the low moderate income apartments pursuant to blah, blah, blah. So that would have to be modified too, or amended.
Yeah. Is that the only place? Let's see, I can say.
Yeah.
Uh, 3.3. The Affordable Housing Trust has a reference. Schedule of use we're getting rid of. And then affordable housing, residence EA districts. So there's a lot of references.
There's a bunch. All right, so we'll have to go through
Yeah.
the next meeting and find them all.
Well, they're all searchable. The code is really nice to have online. It's very searchable.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it's a good search, right? Because I put the hyphen in, but it pulled up
Yeah.
the non-hyphenated, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay. Get rid of the search now.
So I don't think we have any other changes other than what we mentioned last time and the low moderate income one right now for housekeeping.
Okay. Other items for consideration?
So Heidi, is your are you going to write up all of those 5 instances where we have to change the references?
Yes, I'm gonna do your search and get the list and we'll go find. Yep.
And that would be for the next meeting.
Yeah.
So you will own this miscellaneous warrant article language then, is that right? Does that make
Yes.
sense? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I won't keep up a copy. I sent you this version after last meeting, so I'll
Right.
just let you run with that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And I think the miscellaneous one is set to go for warrant language once we get this one set. there were only a few of those administrative type updates, and then this low moderate income one. So once we get those, we should be good in shape with that warrant article. And the only other warrant article then we're going to have is stormwater.
Are we ready to go there?
Sure, I don't think I'm going to make ZBA now.
You can jump over.
All
I can
right,
introduce like Eric's comments and stuff like that.
okay. They're going to be short, and I may be right back.
Okay. Okay, so stormwater and land disturbance. Hold on, it's about to get real loud. I just need to close the door when the kids come in. Heard the garage door opening.
Hey, Steph, you're
Um,
you're the co-host, just so that you know.
What's that?
You're the co-host.
Yes.
So with her gone, then you're
Yep.
managing all that.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, so I had a conversation with Addie May after our last meeting about certain questions we had about the MS4 versus other town drain systems, right? If you recall. I'm just going to pull up the language. So Addie May clarified to me, which I think was discussed in the last meeting, that the MS4 area of the town's drain system is a very small area of downtown right now. But what Addie May also told me, which I didn't know prior to talking to her, was that there is a new draft MS4 permit that has been issued as a draft, not as a final promulgated permit, but as a draft that would expand the MS4 to the entire town.
That's done.
Right now, yeah, go ahead, Addie May.
And it's not a town
The
draft.
watershed, the
EPA
watersheds,
draft.
right? Which is a good portion of the town, much more of the town than is currently under MS4. Right now, I know from my day job that EPA and DEP, the permitting entities, are just really bottlenecks on permits right now. There's a tons of draft permits sitting out there that are not being finalized. There's still a lot of confusion about whether they will be in the near future or not. But regardless, I think Addie May you were in agreement that we do want to regulate discharges to any of the town's drain system, whether they're in the MS4 today or would be in the MS4 under a new permit or aren't even in the MS4 but still convey stormwater to a water body somewhere. And that adding provisions around MS4 and other town storm drainage systems is an appropriate way to characterize. So what we want to protect. So that was one question, and that seemed pretty straightforward. And then the other question I had for Addie May was about DPW permitting certain non-stormwater discharges. And it didn't say into where, but we agreed that the DPW will not permit non-stormwater discharges into the wetlands or into abutting properties. It would be public streets, right-of-ways, and the storm drain system. So those changes were reflected in the version that I emailed out. Then after that, Heidi conveyed some comments from Eric Johnson that were really good on this bylaw. One being to not include abutting properties in what this bylaw is attempting to regulate, because the town doesn't really have authority in terms of if you were to run a hose onto your neighbor's property or direct your drainage onto neighbor's property, and that's not allowed in our bylaw, and someone came to the town and said, my neighbor's directing water onto my property, there's like the town doesn't really have the leverage to do that much for the neighbor's property. It's really that it would be a civil matter that you would pursue with your neighbor. So maybe not to have the abutter situation in the bylaw. Another comment from Eric Johnson was the swimming pool discharge. So we had put in chlorinated, or it previously said dechlorinated, and then we were like, what about chlorinated? But Eric suggested any swimming pool discharges because there could be saltwater pools or, UV hot tubs or whatever, right? So just any swimming pool discharges. Where for the land disturbance, there was a location where we just were trying to refer to the regulations, and the regulations is where we had established some detail for what is a major permit, what is a minor permit, what requires no permit, like all those thresholds that been going through in the stormwater regs. Eric felt it would be appropriate to have some of the key information in the bylaw because the bylaw has a lot more teeth than the regs. And so to maybe put the thresholds, the permitting level into the bylaw itself. And then in the regs, you just flesh out more detail around like what the specifics are within each level. So that'll require a little bit more rework, but I think I agree with that in terms of just making sure that the bylaw has some numeric teeth to it and it's not just 100% in the regs. Was there a last one? Yes, the last one is just about being consistent in how we specified the dollar amount for fines and making sure that fines, which are at the very end of the bylaw, they're either in the regs or they're in the bylaw, but not one in one place and one in the other place. We were going to put them all in the regs, and Eric was good with that.
That makes sense.
But-
If we're going to change them, then we don't have to go through annual town meeting to
Yes.
change on a fee.
Yeah. So those were Eric's comments. And then subsequent to that, Jane had sent out a version that had some very detailed comments and track changes in it. Clearly a lot of thought in that version. So my thought is
Can
to
I just say that
transfer.
Jane made some really good points as well.
Yes. So we've all seen those. My thought is that I will take Jane's as the base and transfer all of these other things that I just mentioned into the version that Jane sent because I think Jane had a lot more in hers, and I just need to go through and make sure that I didn't make any other changes, which I don't think I did after sending it out. So I was thinking maybe I'm going to pull up Jane's version now. So if everybody's kind of good with Eric's suggestions.
I thought they were good. I'm good with it. How about Jim, Brett, Rob?
Yeah.
Brett?
Yeah.
Jim? Hello, Jim?
Oh, he might be frozen.
Frozen.
He looks very serious.
Liam? Oh, there he is. Oh, there, I just saw a smile. Jim?
Yeah, sorry about that.
So, were you good with that? Or did you even hear that?
I did not hear.
With Eric Johnson's comments that I walked through.
Oh, yes.
So did you hear them and are you good with them? And can we start with those?
Affirmative.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So let me now share this screen. I didn't want to keep sharing and unsharing, but now that we're going to move on to Jane's, I can share these. So agree that we need to capitalize so that we know that it's a defined term. Changes to the regs would not be simultaneous. They would come after the bylaw is approved by the town meeting and then by the Attorney General. So once the bylaw is like official, then the regs could be promulgated or modified. Right? We've already modified the stormwater regs. Nope. Nope, we haven't yet. Yeah, so sorry, I was getting them mixed up with some of the other regs we modified earlier.
Yeah, I
But,
mean, we produced stormwater regs. We didn't have any. So we did produce some.
right, we did a first
but
draft.
We did,
Okay.
yes, which is out there. We knew that this was kind of going to be our round one, but there was no
Right.
point in having a public hearing and changing the regs until we know what the Attorney General office is going to approve and that the town meeting approves the bylaws. So they can't match the bylaw till after the approval process is done.
Well, can I ask a question about that though? Because some of what we're doing or proposing to do in the bylaw changes doesn't quite work right unless, the proper definitions are in the regs or, proper corresponding provisions are in the regs. So would it make sense to do limited, since this can be done with just, public hearing and planning board vote, would it make sense to do limited changes to the regs so as to not do damage to the coherence between the bylaw and the regs based on the changes that we're making here? And then, do the full change of the regs whenever, the right time comes. Because my concern is that if we make the changes we're proposing to make here, some things are going to be out of sync with the regs if we just leave them exactly as they are now.
Can we, Heidi, make changes to the regs in advance of the bylaw? I don't see why we,
I think you can. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
okay.
see why we can't do an intermediate level on the regs, because if the worst thing is the bylaw fails, as long as we're looking at the changes we're making on the regs, that if that's still going to be valid with this current bylaw, which a lot of the definitions things will be, yeah.
I mean, definition is a good example. We had a lot of discussion last time about this stray definition of illicit discharge that's in the bylaw. And I think we all agreed it would make more sense to move it to where all the other definitions are. But in order to do that, we need to do that in the regs now or, simultaneous with the changes to the bylaws. If we don't, we kind of have to leave it in the bylaw because otherwise we're talking about something that doesn't exist as a definition right now, which is kind of kludgy.
Yeah.
Right. But just remember this, what's in here right now is still going to be in effect for like the next 9 months.
Yeah.
And it's weird that once they approve everything, it'll become retroactive, but
we can still put definitions in our regs
right, we
that are
still can.
forward-looking for when the
Yes.
thing is approved, even if the
Right.
definitions aren't pertinent to what's in the current bylaw.
Right, as long as it doesn't hurt what's in the current bylaw, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, I think we can do an intermediate regs.
I actually have one other applicability. I have one other comment from Addie May. Is Addie May still on? Yes. Okay. That I forgot to go through before we jump into Jane's. And that was this unauthorized discharges into wetland resource areas, town right of way, public streets, or abutting properties. So we'll take out the abutting properties, but this the thought that illicit discharges specifically pertain to the MS4, and then we have another category of unauthorized discharges into wetlands, right of way, and public street. And the comment that the discussion that Addie May and I had was about not creating a problem where we can't tell what counts and what doesn't count, right? If there's like a huge storm and your driveway is channeling water into the street because of that act of nature, but you're not pumping your basement into the street, right? Like, how can we distinguish like what is acceptable and how do we define the unauthorized discharge, right? So we have illicit discharges into the MS4, unauthorized discharges into wetlands and streets. Then we have illicit connections, as of the definition previously, were really just like the building the conduit that enables the discharge. So whether that's like tapping a pipe into the MS4, literally, or running your hose to the wetland, on your property, that would be the connection. So the discharge is actually the pollutant going in, but the connection is like the conduit that carries the pollutant there. And those are both. So we have illicit discharge, unauthorized discharge, and we have an illicit connection. And then I had added unauthorized connection again into the wetlands and the streets, right? But as Addie May pointed out, like where do we draw the line between what's regulated and what's not regulated under the bylaw? So I was thinking maybe a potential would be for the unauthorized one. So the MS4 is clear, right? It's very clear. You can't tap into the pipe, the stormwater discharge pipe. But for number 2 and number 4 in this list, I wondered if there was a way to convey intent, like to say something like in a definition of an unauthorized discharge or an unauthorized connection or both that says, no person shall cause, right? So it's which is somewhere. I read that somewhere else in this bylaw. Oh, right here. No person shall dump. No person shall construct, right? So if we take that tact in terms of the unauthorized discharges into the streets, if we were to have a definition of unauthorized discharge that says, caused by a person, temporary or permanent, which redirects flows, right? So it's more of an intentional act than just a happenstance of a large storm event.
Well, can
So
I
that's,
ask, I'm sorry.
nope, that's it.
If we are agreed that we're not just talking about the MS4 anymore, we're trying to cover all the water, then is there any reason why the definition of illicit discharge has to be tied specifically to the MS4? Because if that were a broader definition, I don't think we'd even need sections 2 and 4.
Because the state
see.
stormwater plan defines it, handbook defines it as it defines the term illicit discharge as into the MS4.
Okay,
So if we have a
can't change that.
conflicting definition, then that's confusing.
Okay.
So one of your comments here was we don't need to specify into the MS4 because the definition already limits it into the MS4, which is true. But I do think leaving this in here, illicit discharges into the MS4, helps to distinguish it from unauthorized discharges into these other places. So I was kind of sort of intentionally, I actually undid this strike through because I feel like it's helpful to identify what's the difference between an illicit discharge and an unauthorized discharge.
Yeah.
So,
Now that makes sense. Because I was also thinking, why couldn't we just put illicit and unauthorized discharge in the same thing, and then just add the words from the unintended into one instead of having one and two? But now that makes a little more sense.
yeah, okay. So anyway, Anime, I was sort of thinking on it after we talked. What do you think about a definition that sort of gets to intent?
I mean, I like the idea. I guess I'm trying to figure out the language issue.
The words.
Where
Yeah.
luckily we have some others who are smarter than me on that one. I mean, the one thing that comes to mind, I don't know if it's like constructed discharge, like something that, I guess it's intent. So how do you get something that's intentional that you built it? But Joyce might actually have a thought on that. But yeah, I think it makes sense. I just don't know.
The route I was going on that was redirecting flows because the thing about saying constructed or built is that it doesn't get to like a hose coming out of a sump pump, right? So I was hoping that redirecting flows would convey the intent of like moving water from point A to point B on purpose. I just wonder if like pavement could be, you know, construed as redirecting the flow that could have been absorbed into the groundwater, right? So that's where I was worried that it would be a gray area. But we can work on the language too.
Is there any intentional discharge that would be, I mean, by what means would a discharge be authorized?
So permitted non-stormwater discharges down here through the DPW, a permit from the DPW.
Because we could say, and I mean, if we could identify the places where we talk about proper authorization, we could just say intentional discharges that are not authorized under, section blah, blah, blah. Or sections, whatever.
It's funny, I asked Eric
Yes.
the same question, Eric Johnson, about that. Like, why would we have it? But he said there are temporary permits for dewatering and some other things that you'd want to keep this in here for. And he said they're temporary permits.
What about if you have a permitted driveway that slopes to the street and you have runoff into the street? I mean, it's implicitly permitted by the fact that you got a building permit, right?
Well, that's what we'd address in the
Stormwater.
the stormwater where we infiltrate a certain amount of water that comes off there. And if it becomes a real problem, they do like a settling basin at the bottom of the driveway, but that can be handled in the steps as long as it's over an acre, over an acre or over 20,000 square feet.
Or any new home.
Or any new home.
So yes, I think, Rob, the intention is that there would be a way to catch that for new construction, for modification, moving forward, right, through the stormwater process. But also, we don't necessarily want to punish someone for always having this downsloping driveway, right? That, and now suddenly they're in violation of a bylaw, right? So we don't necessarily want to.
So driveways are always going to go down towards the road, and the things that Addie May is probably much more familiar with is that the DPW is going to look for things that, as you all pointed out, significant amounts of water coming off the driveway, and there are always ways to handle that can be addressed in the stormwater, permit, whether they tilt the driveway to one side or what have you. And that's why the bylaw is so helpful to cover everything and not just MS4.
Can we just talk about intentional discharges other than those permitted under this bylaw, the regs, or by permit? Would that cover everything?
Other than those permitted by the regulations of this bylaw or other permits? Is that what you said?
Or by permit, yeah. What, you know, an intentional discharge that is not
Yeah.
Allowed under this bylaw, the regs, or by permit.
Mhm. Addie May, what do you think about that as a mechanism to distinguish?
Right now, it sounds good, and I'll have to kind
Okay.
of reread it, but right now it makes sense.
Yep. Okay. I've captured that sort of in the place where I have separate notes from my conversation with Addie May, and I will integrate it all into this one, but I wanted to put it over there for now. Oh, I guess it is here too, because this was, you built on this document. Maybe I'll just put that in this version as well.
Can I just make a point that I'm concerned about the warrant language? If we put this in the mailer that goes out to everyone, no one can understand all the changes we're making. This is so chopped up with all these changes and crossouts that this is where I'm really concerned to putting this type of thing. I think the stormwater should say delete the existing stormwater bylaw and replace with and put in the clean text in the warrant.
That's what Frank was saying earlier. I guess I have some.
If you look at this,
Maybe. Yeah, it is more.
This is,
Well, I think if the final edited form would have to all be one color, they wouldn't be blue, red, yellow,
True.
and then black strike. It would be one color, but there's so much of a strike through that, you know, it seems to me lots of it are just being replaced.
I agree
right,
with
but to
Heidi.
start, I just say to start going through and say, well, we're striking through 224 and then 220. It's like there's too much. When you get to this many changes, it's really, people are not gonna be able to follow it.
I agree with that. And people are going to get annoyed. I mean, there's disclosure, but then there's just like, you know, driving people crazy. And I think, to your point, Heidi, we might be on the line of driving people crazy.
I think that if someone wants to sit down, we can have a copy that they can look at. They want to really track all the changes. But when I looked at the back, I remember John Higley on something looking back recently, he had delete this, you know, portion and replace it with, and he only listed the clean portion of what was being replaced. Like they deleted the whole thing because there had been so many changes. So
Yeah, I think that makes sense when we're getting to the level of this many changes.
yeah. So I think the housekeeping ones, I think it's fine to do that because there are not that many and we're going very specific. But this, I think, is people are going to get this and go, I can't follow it. And I don't know
I guess
what's
I just
clean and
worry
what
that
is.
it's like I worry that it has, because it is so similar in many ways, it then sort of like it doesn't highlight what we're changing, right? And so I guess I just sort of I still have some reservations about saying, well, just strike and replace the whole thing with this. It's sort of like could be we could be accused of trying to hide deleting things, or I don't know. You know how people are
I
sometimes.
feel like
And
You can't win.
Yeah.
you can't
You
win.
can't win.
I feel like
But
having it this way also looks like we're trying to hide it by just being like, good luck figuring out what this says. So
right,
I don't know.
right. But it's going to make people take more time and saying, what do
Yeah.
they do?
But
Um,
so with the perspective of if you start with a clean slate, then somebody can go through and say, how is this going to affect me or my situation or the situations that I could possibly have? And it's not necessarily looking at how the old one was, because a lot of times people are looking at which is better for them, the old or the new, and why do I want to change this if it's not going to be any better?
Yeah,
If you just go with a new slate, then they can just look at it and say, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't like this or I don't like that." They don't necessarily need to compare it to the old when there's this many changes.
yeah. I mean, otherwise too, I can talk with town council. Can you put a little preamble? We're deleting the stormwater and replacing it with the version below, which includes land disturbance, covers the town more, and adds levels of approvals or something. Just some sentence in the warrant language right at the top, giving a highlight of it,
Mm.
but not.
yeah, I think that's what I was going to say too, Heidi. I think you need a narrative ahead of that saying this is how it was previously written. We're making these changes because of these reasons, and then here's the revised language.
But where does that go? Does that go in the warrant article itself where it says replace section X and replace it in its entirety with the revised section X in order to achieve these objectives? Like, is that where it's in the warrant article?
I
No,
would hope we could, but I don't know. But advisory always gives comments with underneath the articles, and I think that's where
Okay,
most of these things can be highlighted.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
The advisory is going to drag everything through a fine tooth
Yeah.
comb and have you explain everything, and so that's where
Yeah.
you'll want to see this. Advisory is going to want to see this, but in the warrant article, you keep it simple.
And by the way, Heidi, advisory liked your road show last year.
That's
doesn't mean
great.
you need- It
That's
doesn't
not
mean you
what
need to
Heidi
do it.
wants to hear.
That doesn't mean you need to do it one for one or one for, two for one person that you're doing it for each time.
Yeah.
You could call a meeting of the advisory and try to get the majority of them anyway.
Yeah, we tried. It got tight, but I'm glad it worked. It was worthwhile, but it was a lot of work.
Absolutely. And time consuming.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like timeline wise, does it make more sense for a couple of us to sideline on a subcommittee instead of having this level of discussion in the public meeting in the full board meeting? And just for time's sake, because it's already 8 o'clock, we can go through all of this. I
mean, I
like-
know Sean had looked through this with me once, and for the most part, thought things were on track. But he had some questions. But he's in capital budget tonight, so he couldn't be here. So, but he's willing to meet on this. But it's been a crazy week.
well, I think most people are going to think this is abstract. What's the MS for, number one? And how does that relate to this? That seems like an abstract concept, probably to a lot of people.
With that said, Jim, I just what one of the people that I was talking to, I'm not mentioning any names, but they didn't think that this was going to rise to the level for a lot of people like ADUs did, and the MBTA communities, and things like that really have a major effect on them. So Not saying that
agree.
it's not important and we shouldn't do our due diligence and we shouldn't go through and be as transparent as possible, but
I just have one question on it. Maybe Steph can just answer this because I kind of read through it. I didn't see anything else, but I was very confused by the permitted non-stormwater discharges at 200-4 section B.
Yeah.
So that lists these 4 categories that you need a finding by the DPW that you can do this. And that sounds reasonable, although I'm not sure why foundation drains and footing drains are listed separately. Isn't the footing part of the foundation? But whatever, fine, who cares? But then in the next section, C, prohibited non-stormwater drain discharges, the following non-stormwater discharges are strictly prohibited. First, swimming pools, okay. But then discharges of water from any source into the street, doesn't that like totally override everything you just said in B? What's that supposed to mean?
Well, discharges to the street or the public right of way were not in this. This whole bylaw was about the MS4. So this seems to me like a catch-all for
But B
like
says these
someone.
things are specifically allowed into public streets. And then C says you can't discharge water into the street. So it makes no sense to me. I don't know.
I mean, B says that in certain situations where there's no viable alternative, you might get a permit for it.
Right.
Right. So this is not an authorization to discharge these things into the streets.
But it says
And
it can
also
be
keep in mind
authorized.
that this said MS4. This did not say public streets. Right? This whole bylaw was only about the MS4. So then to have down here, oh, also you can't discharge into the street is a separate thought at the time. But I think you're right that it might not make sense to keep, given that we're putting streets kind of throughout.
Yeah, I think there's confusion. I can see where Rob, I mean, I don't think the intent is ever to allow water. I mean, Joyce can probably answer to this, just running into the streets. I mean, the idea would be that it would be running into some sort of catch basin or tie-in if the storm system, basically. And so maybe that's where B and C are in conflict in a way. I think the intent on C2 is, you can't just flood the streets with water.
Right. So B probably shouldn't be saying you're allowed to discharge it into public streets or right of ways because you wouldn't do that with a foundation drain anyway. But you might do it towards a wetland resource area or other things that we talked about above, but perhaps not public streets or right of ways. So that has to be worked through again. By trying to include a lot of things, it might have changed the meaning of that.
But public streets and right of way are under the jurisdiction of the DPW, right?
Rob, would it solve your concerns if C2 said something like discharges of water from any source into the street other than as specifically permitted here under?
Under B, yeah, that's what I was about to suggest.
I think this was a mechanism to talk about some specific things that people, I think C was a mechanism to have in the bylaw some specific things that people might search for. What do I do with my swimming pool water? Can I put water in the street? And so even so it feels redundant to us from a systematic standpoint because it's not fully inclusive of everything that should be in this category. But like we added the word inclusionary zoning into the affordable housing bylaw for that same reason in the last town meeting, right? It's like some people may just come to the code and search for swimming pool water so that they can see what's
Yeah.
allowed or not
No,
allowed.
that's not redundant at all because that basically says even the DPW can't give you a permit to
Yeah.
discharge swimming pool water. Okay.
So I think this should be removed given our conversations because it's not strictly prohibited.
Oh, I would take it out of B. Right?
But-
Because
But okay.
just
So,
the
but
public streets part. The others all remain. Just the public streets because, well, I guess town right of way. I mean, that might be that could be like
Public-
the shoulder, right? I mean, we
it could be the
might let
shoulder,
people
or it could be
discharge
the
onto the
streets that
shoulder.
aren't state owned. So like Washington Street is a public street, but it's not a town right of way.
Okay. Okay.
But to Brett's point, the town right away includes the like roughly depending on the full, but it's approximately. I mean, you have to get a complete survey, but it's approximately 5 to 10 feet from the edge of the pavement. Sometimes it's not a guarantee. I mean, it has to be surveyed. You can't say 10 feet from the pavement, but the town right away, there could be a swale along the road that is in the town right of way that it would be appropriate. But again, I guess that's then the DPW could permit that.
Which is why I would think you could take the public streets out, but we could leave those other things because there might be cases where that would be temporarily safe for.
Yeah, I mean, I would keep B and then delete 2.
That's what I was thinking.
I know, but I don't know.
I think we
Do
could
we-
delete C2 because when we were looking up above at all those illicit discharge possibilities, we've already said these are all illicit discharges. So, we've kind of already said it and covered it. Right? I mean, we're talking about unauthorized discharges and how we were going to define that. And we already said you can't discharge into the street.
C is anywhere though, right? You can't discharge.
No, just into the street. Any source, but the is into the street.
I don't think C2 is the only place where we're telling people they can't discharge water into the street. I think we've already covered that.
Right.
I agree because
So-
we have this up here, right?
Right.
Unauthorized discharges into the public street. So I
Right.
think it's
So it looks to me the way C is reading is that would be anywhere. You can't discharge chlorinated or dechlorinated swimming pool discharges. Where?
it's
No,
not
it
clear.
basically says you can only discharge them on your own property. Or
Well,
maybe-
this
Yeah,
previously
right.
said this previously was all about the MS4, right?
Mhm.
We could put swimming pool discharges into the definition and just remove this whole thing, but you'd have to search the regs for it, not the bylaw, right? And that way we're not having any conflict between what's in here and what's an unauthorized. It would just be part of the unauthorized discharges. We could call out a couple things like yard waste and
Yeah.
swimming pool.
Yeah, you could, under unauthorized discharges, you could say, including without limitation and
Right.
list a couple of things.
Addie Mae, was there anything with the MS4 that they were looking to see strictly prohibited categories?
Don't recall anything specific. But I'll go back and review.
Yeah, because I mean, we already say, these things are prohibited above, and now we're saying, oh, these are strictly prohibited. Well, what's the difference between prohibitive and strictly prohibited?
Right.
And otherwise, just move the chlorinated water, the swimming pool water into the list in the top. I just wonder if there was a reason this category was in there. Sometimes the states or the feds want to have certain languages.
So what you would say is including swimming pool water of any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my hunch is that like most of our bylaws, things just got built on and built on and built on and inserted and not really, no one actually went back to look at where's the redundancy.
We can look at a few other towns and see what theirs says, and if everyone has a strictly prohibitive category, maybe then we need to have it in, but
I think you're right, Heidi, though. It only confuses things because what's the difference between prohibited and strictly prohibited? I mean,
no, you really shouldn't do this.
I mean, it's like, we
We
might
mean it
forgive you
more.
if you do the other one, but this one's really bad.
But you
And
may
this is
get
a
a permit,
bylaw.
but you might get a permit under B.
That's right.
So, I'm of the mindset to delete this and incorporate swimming pools into definitions of unauthorized discharges.
Agree.
That sounds good.
Or maybe even put it somewhere else. Maybe it's just prohibit under the following activities are prohibited. We have a yard waste one. Maybe we can say swimming pool discharges of any kind.
That's what I
You
was
know?
thinking of, just
Okay.
adding it up there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it right now on this copy.
Yeah.
Then,
And to the point that someone made earlier, do we want to say like, outside of someone's property or something, because otherwise it is a little confusing. Well, then what are you supposed to do with it?
truck it off, right?
Right.
Is the ideal way to handle your swimming pool discharges, is to have them trucked out.
Well,
So,
do you state that here then?
but we could say into the MS4 wetland resource areas, town right of way, public streets. Like we could repeat our list.
I mean, if somebody wants to dump it on their property, I guess.
Water their own garden as long as it's not in a wetland.
You just take their pool water and put it back into their own pool and it's fine.
Sometimes they put like an infiltration basin and slowly drain it. So it stays contained.
Just
So
like
there are ways to
infiltrate
handle
it.
it on your own property.
And not put it in the wetlands.
Right.
Oh, so it looks like, Jane, you made some changes here. So MS4 and other town drainage systems, I think we want to leave that intact. That phrase intact. I think you had asked a question about where did you put it? Nope, that was a good. Because here you added MS4 where I don't know that we want it to pertain just to MS4.
No, that wasn't an addition. That was just that the storm drainage system is not the defined term. The defined term is either MS4 or when we state it all, it's, municipal storm sewer, separate storm sewer system. So I was just trying to use the defined term rather than something that is not a defined term.
The MS4 is a very small subset of the town's overall storm drainage system. So the MS4,
No, I understand, but the way we
Okay.
define, we have a definition already that says municipal separate storm sewer system, parentheses, MS4. So we're using MS4 as a substitute for the defined term or an equal defined term to municipal separate storm sewer system.
right,
But that's
but there's
different from the
also
town. Yeah.
other like this was meant to be the town's drainage system, not the MS4, right? So it's a different, there's like the overall town drain system, which is a lot of pipes, and then there's the
I
MS4,
see.
which is downtown.
I say, well, then should we use that same language we've been using
Yes.
everywhere else?
So I'm gonna reject the deletion here, but keep MS4 and other town storm drainage systems. Right?
Yeah.
That's our new term, MS4 and other town drainage systems. Okay. And I think we need to do this. For and other town drainage systems. Sorry, I got off track because I was. Oh, we were gonna. For and other. Oh. I think maybe this was a mistake. Is that a
That's a
mistake?
stray. Yeah, that's just some stray.
We want to keep definitions in here, right?
Yes.
Okay. As for other town drainage systems, wetland resource area, and public streets. So something to that effect. And at some point, I'm gonna need to not use track changes because I can't see what's red and bold on track changes. But I appreciate that you did it so that it's easier to sort of see. Anyway, so I guess back to my question of like, just want to make sure there's an intention here. Do we want to go through these line by line as a group versus having a subcommittee sort of back and forth a little bit that's not subject to open meeting law? Are people good? Just keeping on?
Sure.
And also there's a timeline question to that.
I am good with a subcommittee getting together and cleaning this all up, hashing most of this out, coming back and then having a further discussion on what is remaining.
Do we have time for that, Heidi, in our bylaw development timeline?
Yes, if we can get, because I really think the subcommittee would be easier for Sean and Addie May maybe to get together, Joyce to weigh in on some things, because Joyce really had some good feedback on another town that she was going to add in. So if we can try and do that in the January, so we have 2 meetings in January, that should be before the warrant closes. That if we can get by the January, what's the January meeting? Is it the 6th?
If the 6th is the first one, and the 20th is the second one, and the warrant closes on the 22nd.
Yep. So if we can try and get the subgroups going so that by the 6th, we pretty much have it set, I think that would be key.
Well,
we could always have
getting-
another meeting.
Finding time for the subcommittee to work between now and January 6th feels
Yeah.
a little bit punishing.
Yeah, no, it does.
So what if instead of like, we could always change the January meetings to make it maybe the 13th. The 20th, I think, is kind of hard for us to say, yes, it's all done. And unless you feel the subcommittee can polish it all up and on the 20th, go through this and get a vote and have it so that it gets to select board. It's supposed to already be in their packet by that Monday, the 19th. So I'm concerned that the 20th might be just a little bit too late. Instead of the 6th, do you want to do the 13th and do the 13th and the 20th in January?
Just looking at my calendar. I mean, the 13th would work for me and that, but then we'd have to have assurance that we're ready to approve something if the 19th
Yeah.
is the deadline.
So we could see where we are with the 6th and just see where it goes. Because I'm thinking if we do the warrant language just for the delete and replace on this article, we don't have to have everything totally, complete. Like, we're not going to hand them the full article yet. They just want that warrant language to say, what is it going to be?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the good point was made that when we go to the advisory hearing,
Yeah,
we will need to have the red line of everything, so we should preserve it as we go instead of having to recreate it.
right. But we won't be going to advisory till the end of January, is my guess, or February even.
Oh, so you're saying like a placeholder that's close enough,
Yeah,
even if we later vote another version that has some tweaks?
because we haven't had we won't have the public hearing until after we get our version. So the public hearing, we're not going to really get into probably until first part of February.
February. Okay.
Could we ask advisory
Well-
to put us a little later in the schedule?
Yeah, we could ask advisory to put us a little later. I think
Mm.
what I should do is find out if all the select board need from us is that language saying that we're gonna delete and replace. You know, if that's all they need, then we're set with meeting their January 22nd
Yes.
deadline and still work on our document.
I think they're going to need more than that personally.
Yeah,
but-
I mean, certainly they're going to want to know what we're replacing with, right? Even if we don't have the line comparison for them.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's going to be that important that that document is 100%.
Oh, okay.
By the 22nd.
Yeah,
It will by the time that it has to be printed and it has to be.
right, right, right,
The bloody Saturday.
right.
But it gives us a
Oh,
little.
when is Bloody Saturday this year?
It should be in March, but typically it's in March.
Yeah, I don't know which one. I'm sure it's when your dance recitals are going to be, Steph.
Mhm.
Oh, you're right. Every year.
It's always been when I had
I have to
signed.
leave for the dance recitals. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Okay, so first of all, who's on the subcommittee? I'm going to nominate Jane and myself and Addie May. Potentially
say
Joyce,
Joyce.
but I don't want to. Okay, Joyce was just nominated. So between those people, is anyone like gone for a week? You know, like, are we really constrained over the holidays?
I will not physically be here between Christmas and New Year's, but I could participate by Zoom.
And I won't be here the week before next week. I'm here between Christmas and New Year's, though.
Addie May, between Christmas and New Year's, what does that look like for you? Probably skiing, huh?
The 23rd through the 20, yeah, so next week, the 23rd on, I'm gone, and then, but then I know, where's the calendar? Then, but then home, like where is that, Monday, Tuesday before New Year's, there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I cannot find a calendar.
And a lot of this can be done if it's just you working on it. You can share the document via email and have
And we could,
email ways in, so you don't have to have a physical meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
You can then comment on each other's documents too, because it won't be a quorum.
Right.
yeah, like on
Right.
Tuesday the 30th, are people around on Tuesday the 30th?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that
By
should
Zoom.
work for me.
Okay. Well, let's try to do work by email in the next couple weeks. Does someone have time so the next 5, 6 days for me are just like flat out super busy. And so does anyone feel like they have time in the next week or so to own it? If not, I can just wait till we get past this week and I just need to get past Sunday. It's the Nutcracker. So speaking of dance recitals. So then after that I can have more time to sort of like do a fresh draft, taking into account what Jane said and what Eric said and all that stuff and try to put it in one place.
Right. And are we trying to, again, I haven't really printed out the rules and regs side by side to look at how we're meeting up. I mean, I think that's such a huge
We would
of
we
it.
would need to do that, but we may not need to prioritize that.
Okay.
There's one place where we want to pull some rules and regs stuff into one paragraph, but specific things that I've already talked to Heidi about.
Okay.
So that's easy to do. I think we can do the like rules and regs to promulgate after we get the bylaw language in and then work on definitions for the rules and regs and some like the interim rules and regs that we're talking about.
So I hate to lay this on you, but since you, as usual, have all of the you kind of have it in your head how the document that the working that we have right now done.
Yeah. I can take a first cut at it. I guess my
And
challenge
should
is if
probably wait until after Nutcracker finishes and
yeah,
what
I might have some
I'll be
gaps,
doing
but
in the interim, we kind of are going home and looking at some other towns to see the question about what was it, the unauthorized and authorized, or what was it, illegal discharge. We had a couple things that came up tonight that kind of needed
Yeah.
further homework.
And Joyce has some good inputs, that she didn't get to put in tonight, but I think that can all be done via email. And I don't think it needs to get done this week, Steph. I think everyone can take a breather, like look at what we've done tonight. If you want to send the current draft version out and just say, this is where we left it, everyone can just look and read and start.
it's really just Jane's. Like there's not anything I've done
Okay.
systematically in Jane's. But I guess my point being, if I get something out in a week's time to the subgroup, that's right before Christmas Eve. And then if we're planning to like try to meet on the 30th, like how much are people going to get done between the 23rd and the 30th? You know what I mean? So
We can try. I have a section on enforcement that beefs up enforcement, but might be very helpful.
yeah,
So
I'll love for you
I'll
to
try
add
and
that in.
send that
Definitely.
out.
I won't be touching much on enforcement. So if you want to add that in when it comes out, that would be really helpful.
I mean, my gut says we're kind of going through and making sure things are cohesive. You guys have already added a lot, and Joyce has got enforcement and the things that then. Yeah, I know. Yes, you're concerned that there's not been a lot of time, but we're not at a point where we're going to be throwing a lot more into this either.
Yeah. Okay.
We're
All right.
trying
Well, let's
clean up.
try for that. Let's try for that where I turn around a draft in about the next week. And then we get together on the 30th. Should we set a time just since we're all here so we don't have to figure that out over email?
I can set up a Zoom if you want to.
Anytime before 3 is probably better for me on the 30th, if that is an option. I don't know. I don't know if that works for you, Steph, but it's either 3 or after 4. Just at 3 o'clock I have to chauffeur.
My chauffeuring is later that day, so let's shoot for maybe early afternoon. Like 1-ish. Doesn't seem like.
1 second. So 3, you said 3? Because as it turns out, I have a dental surgery at 4 o'clock on that 30th.
Would 1 o'clock be okay, or
1 o'clock is
10?
fine.
Oh, 1 o'clock? Okay, great.
Jane, does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Heidi, I don't know can you set up the Zoom and not attend the Zoom?
Well, I could just let it run. I mean, I could, and then I could just switch and have you be co-host, and then I could
So
set it
you'd
up
have to
and
jump on and that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yep. The 30th at 1. Okay. Great. So we have a process. And then hopefully by the 6th, we'll be able to have a draft in people's hands to at least look at before the 6th. After the 30th and before the 6th.
That'd be great.
Okay, so I will own the next iteration, so nobody make changes on a different version, please. 'Cause it's always a lot to integrate that. So for the enforcement stuff, Joyce, just hang on to that, hang tight for now, and then we'll get to it. Okay, awesome. Cool.
Would it be possible for you to just send out what you have now? Just so
It's just what Jane said, but maybe you weren't on that. Maybe
Oh, I
that
thought we were making some changes now too.
I didn't really. Did I? Oh, I guess I kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, I did a couple.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they weren't huge, but they were, it's at least better if we're all at least starting with that version.
Yeah.
Mine.
just to think about it.
Yeah, it doesn't have like Eric's comments,
That's fine. I
stuff
have
like
those.
that. Okay. Okay. Save a version. Okay.
I'm going to leave you all.
Okay. So
Good night.
stormwater bylaw, we're
you.
okay, I think, on the agenda.
All right, then we have reports on meetings with other boards. Is that where we're next? With other boards and entities? Do you have any of those?
Traffic safety, does anyone want to talk about that
I
meeting?
was going to talk in my town planner report.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
I was just seeing if any of the other board members had reports under the other boards.
Do not.
Okay. Then you
All
want
right.
the town
Well,
planner report?
Now we got the top line report.
Okay. So first one was on our open space and recreation plan survey. Hopefully people have done that, or please mention it to people. We've got 272 surveys completed so far. And it's a long survey, but people are taking it seriously. We've got over 100 comments that people have put in, and it's really good information to see what we're getting. So we're starting to see an outreach too. We put an effort to reach the schools, asking the CSA and the principal to send out an email blast, and it actually has increased the numbers from when there was only about 2% of people that were under 40 doing it. We now have 13% of people that are under 40 doing it. So that's helped make a bump in the survey numbers. But we want to keep going for the next month and try and double the number if we can. So, which is going to be tough because I think we hit the first amount, but it's
Have you tried sending out the email request again, just out through constant contact to even the same group that received it, just in case they forgot about it or?
yeah, no, I think we're going to do that. We'll talk about our next efforts. I think recreation still has to send it out to their blast of their email, their kids. So we'll still work on that. And then I was on a
January for that because during Christmas and the end of the year it'd be hard.
I think at this point we're going to wait till after January 1st, for the second wave.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I was on a Zoom call today for B26, which is the acronym for FIFA Boston 2026, that games are going to be played at Boston Stadium, which is what they're now calling Gillette Stadium for this FIFA games. And they're expecting 2 million visitors to come to New England. In June, we have games on June 13th, 16th, 19th, 23rd, 26th, and we have the quarterfinals here on July 9th. So, and also June 29th. And they've got some really good matches lined up. They expect to draw huge crowds. They say we have Norway versus France, which has some of the top world soccer stars on both teams right now. So it is going to be a transportation nightmare, to say the least, with all the infrastructure. They're talking about adding 11 more express trains from Boston direct down to Boston Stadium to get the hotel groups from Boston to get them moved out. They expect to be moving 18,000 people on that. And they'll add one train up from Providence, which we kind of questioned whether one train was really enough from Providence, but that's all they're adding. In addition to any of the other commuter rail things, they're adding a lot of buses. They said it's going to depend too on what the quarterfinals are. That could change the location of where the fan base is. Should we get Brazil, that might shift it out more towards our area. But right now they do expect any hotel in the area including into Connecticut and Rhode Island and New Hampshire, to be booked. May not want to be traveling much during that month. But very exciting to have, and it just, the amount of planning that's going into it is pretty intense right now. And then Land Acquisition Committee met, and I don't know, Rob, did you make the meeting last week for land acquisition? Okay. So, and Land Acquisition will be presenting a future vision at the Select Board's next meeting. And I expect that we'll see more interest in parcels and opportunities coming. And I think Rob's gonna get more activity and more as it comes along and more updates from that group. The Public Safety Committee met last week to discuss the Western Ave traffic calming islands. We had several complaints have been made, but none seem to be from the neighbors that lived right on Western Ave. And quite a few of the residents showed up to the meeting in person and online, and every one of them was saying that they noticed a difference and that the reduction in speed could save a life. And there were questions of seeing, they said it's actually quieter too, because a lot of the trucks have slowed down a bit. The speed feedback signs also have been installed and will be programmed soon if they're not programmed already. They might have more of an update.
They are. I drove by there and they are.
Okay. All right. And all the Western Ave neighbors were thanking Sean and Addie Mae and the town for their help in getting this done. And the planning board as well. They appreciated what we did with Edessa and having something come to fruition. So I think it's going to be a learning curve on it for people and just getting used to it. And that maybe there will have to be some potential safety improvements visibility wise on the bases of the islands that Sean might be able to consider. That was one suggestion, but overall seems to be going in the right direction.
I was just over on Washington Street a few hours ago, not on Washington, on Western, and at the intersection with Whitney, looks like somebody going southbound had like smacked into one of the reflective stanchions and just knocked down into the middle of the street.
Great.
Bound to happen until people get used to it, right? So, but I think increasing the visibility will help with that.
It was nice to see that group who have been coming to various town boards and committees and so on for so long, finally happy with something that's actually happened. So it was good to hear the positive feedback. So that was good. Probably the biggest concern is, with the new state law of, giving bicyclists 4 feet, that there's no way to get a bicyclist on that road and between the island and, that's still an issue. It's still an issue for pedestrians walking and kids waiting for buses, but still it's a huge improvement.
Yep. And that's it for town planner report.
Any other topics of conversation to be had before we end this meeting? Hearing none, I make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 8:41 on December the 16th. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Boy, that enthusiasm. We want to keep on going. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning our meeting, verify by saying aye. Jim Greeno.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Brett.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
And I, Frank Hookman, aye as well. Guys, have a happy holidays. Get some rest before you get all that work on, before all the work or some whatever. Get whatever rest you can in all that work that we have to do. And have happy holidays. Thank you for your great work this year.